You Booked It, episode 140. What's going on, everyone? Thank you for joining me today on You Booked It, the #1 podcast where you learn how to create a successful entertainment career. Every episode is a masterclass on how to move your career forward. And if you want even more, head over to youbookeditpodcast.com and join the email community where we dig deep into what you can be doing right now to help book that next gig. And now, let's do this. All right, let's get started. I am excited to introduce my guest today, Riley Costello. Are you ready for this, Riley?
You bet.
All right. Riley is currently playing Bach in Wicked on Broadway. Other Broadway credits include 13, Bye Bye Birdie, and Everyday Rapture. He has been seen on TV as Brad in NBC's Hairspray Live and several other shows and commercials. He has performed all over the country in different regional houses as Finch in How to Succeed and Peter Pan at Connecticut Rep, Surf in Las Vegas, Puck in A Midsummer Night's Dream at the Metropolitan Opera, and several performances at the Hollywood Bowl. Riley, that is a quick intro of who you are and what you've done, but why don't you tell us a little bit more about yourself, fill in the gaps, and a little bit more about what you do as a professional in the entertainment industry?
Thank you. Yes, it all sounds very exciting when you say it like that. It sounds like somebody else's life. Let's see. I am from the Bay Area in California originally. I've really been performing my whole life I've been singing since I was probably 2 or 3. And my first stage show, I was 7, I believe. And then I started working professionally at 14 years old. And just, you can't keep me away from this business. So I have stuck around this whole time. And now I've just somehow been lucky enough to make a life doing what I love. I've been bi-coastal for the past 5 years. You know, we go where the work is. So I now have a home base in LA, and it feels like I'm in New York all the time for work. So that's a little bit of what I do and who I am.
Very cool. And do you prefer one of the coasts over the other, or are they completely their own things for you?
They're completely their own things. I think for me specifically, LA makes a lot of sense as a home base. As I said, it just is a little bit more stable and there's more space. You just feel a little bit more like you're home when you're here. And obviously there's a ton of work opportunity out here. And I really feel like I'm in the game when I'm auditioning out here. And then New York is my first love as a city. I moved before I went to high school. So my whole high school career in New York and the years after that, those are the years that you're really coming into your own and growing up. And so I feel like a New Yorker in LA. Really, that's the best way to describe it, especially because my upbringing was in the theater. So I think you find your tribe of theater people in LA, and those become your close people.
Ah, very cool. And let's move on to our first section here. And Riley, look, I am a sucker for a good quote. What is your favorite quote you'd like to share with everyone?
I have this prepared. This is truly my favorite quote. It seems funny to do it at the start of any sort of conversation because it feels very final, but it is just without a doubt my favorite quote. It moves me like no other. It's an Irma Bombeck quote, and maybe somebody's used it before, but it's something like, when I stand before God at the end of my life, I would hope that I would not have a single ounce of talent left. So I could say, I used everything you gave me.
I don't think I've heard that one on the show. I've read that one somewhere, and that is so great.
It's so much. It's like chills up and down your spine when I think about it. I love it.
Yeah, and can you expand on that just a little bit? It's pretty self-explanatory, but can you expand on how it really relates to you and your career and your life?
Sure. Yeah. I was just born an artist. I was born ready to do this. There was never any other options. I came out of the womb singing, basically. And so I don't know where that comes from. And whatever you believe, whether it's God, the universe, some divine energy, something that you don't, science, whatever you want to call it, I don't know why. I feel lucky that I was born knowing exactly what I wanted to do. Obviously, this business has its ups and downs, but I think if, this need to share my voice and share my art and make and create and share that with people, if that is from something bigger than me, I want to make sure that I'm using it. I want to make sure that I'm doing what I'm here to do, which I think that's why I'm here. I don't know. But if that is why I'm here, I want to make sure I'm doing it. I was just born with urgency. I've always been like a bit of an old soul, ready to go. And so I think that quote motivates me to make stuff, to keep going.
Yeah. Love that. Love that explanation and how it's worked its way into your life. And let's get into this next section here. And Riley, of course, you are an entertainer. I'm an entertainer. And I think that you'd agree that this industry can be one of the most subjective, brutally honest, personally emotional industries in existence. And you know as well as I that in order to create and have a successful career in this industry like you're having now takes a lot of dedication and hard work. And while, yeah, there's an outrageous amount of fun and excitement doing what we do, there are also our fair share of obstacles, challenges, and failures we are going to experience and we're going to have to move forward through. So tell us, what is one key challenge, obstacle, or failure you've experienced in your career, and how did you come out the other side better because of it?
It's interesting. I don't know that there has been one specific thing, but I think because I started so young, the constant question, I mean, we all as artists constantly question, is this right? Am I still supposed to be doing this? Am I needed? Am I useful? Am I doing anything different? Is it worth it? Because it sometimes just hurts so bad. I've been pretty lucky, I would say, in what is it now, like 13 years or so of working professionally, to not have had my butt kicked too hard by this business. But there was this one period of months where I was let go from a project that I had been working on for a number of years. And in the same week, there was a dream job that I was in final callbacks for. And I was effectively told I was going to get this role. And it ended up not happening, all because of sort of a clerical error, actually. And then there was something else. I don't remember what it was, but there was this month or 2 month stretch where it was just like, well, I guess we're getting all of this stuff out of the way right now. And that just took me out. And I thought, I think I just chose to be grateful that it hasn't always been like that for me. But I think, how do you come out on the other side of that? I think I love listening to actors talk about what they do. I really do. And people that I consider to be at the top of their game, at the top of their craft, their careers, they're just having the most success from my point of view. You listen to them talk and they say exactly this, which is that it never feels any different. No matter what level you're at, there's always going to be rooms you don't get in. There's always going to be a part you wish you could play that they just don't see you for. There's always going to be someone you want to be seen or work with or whatever. And I think the important thing to take from that is that if you can be happy now in this career, you'll always be happy, because it probably won't feel any different. So
Yeah.
no matter how successful you get, quote unquote, it always has these ups and downs and always has those challenges. So if you can dust yourself off and keep going and know that what is meant for you will not pass you by, I think you're going to be okay.
So great. No matter how successful you get, you always have the ups and downs and the challenges. Like you said, you said there'll always be the room that you can't get into, the role that they won't see you as being the right fit for.
Mm-hmm.
And thank you so much for sharing that, because that is massive. And I think that really ties into living in the present and enjoying the now. Like you said, if you can be happy doing what you're doing now, then you can be happy in this career. And that is such a massive takeaway for everyone listening. This is why this podcast has become so important for fellow entertainers that are in this industry professionally, aspiring people wanting to be part of this industry. That is such golden advice. Thank you, Riley, for saying that.
Oh, my pleasure.
Yeah. And let's move on to a time that I like to call your spotlight moment. That one moment in time you realized, yes, I am going to be an entertainer for a living, or maybe it was, yes, this is what I need to be doing as an entertainer. Tell us about that.
Yeah, I think the second half of that, this is what I need to be doing as an entertainer, continues to evolve. I think that will hopefully always evolve because I would like to think that I can keep growing and learning more. And obviously your type changes as you get older too. So
Yeah, right.
whatever, whether it's, more things to be doing on the other side of the table or whatever, I think that's the great thing about this business is that is so much you can do and so many different ways to be creative. But back to the first part of that, the spotlight moment, I think I have to start with how I got started because it's kind of a cool story, I think.
Yeah, let's hear it.
Yeah, sure. Okay. I was in a community theater production of Big the Musical when I was 12. And I played young Josh, who has this really nice ballad in Act Two. It's a really pretty song, very emotional. And I was 12. I just was singing and doing my thing. I didn't think anything of it. And apparently, someone that knew Jason Robert Brown was in the audience of this 175 seat theater in an old barn that I grew up performing in my hometown. And after a month or two after the show, we got a personal email from Jason Robert Brown. My mom got a personal email from him that was like, "Hey, I'm working on this show for teenagers and we're looking everywhere. And I hear your son's got something going on. So does he want to come to LA and audition for this new show?" And my
Whoa.
mom and I had no idea who this man was. And we didn't know. It just
Yeah, of
kind of
course.
fell into our laps. And so I flew to LA for this first audition, and it took a year and a half, several rounds of different rounds, different cities to go to, and different callbacks. And I remember during that process looking at my mom because again, I didn't have an agent at this point. I was just doing a community theater show, and I looked at my mom during the callbacks, one of the callbacks, and I said, "I just realized if I get this, are you going to let me do it?" Like, we hadn't even discussed, like, time was moving so quickly. We hadn't even discussed whether or not this was actually a legitimate possibility. But after that initial audition and meeting with Jason, it was like maybe a year and a half later that I moved to New York and we opened the show on Broadway. And that's how I started professionally. So I think that's probably the best like spotlight moment because it sort of just catapulted me into this world. And then I just kept going. When that show closed, it was just like, I guess I do this now. I always thought I'd get there eventually. I figured I'd go to conservatory. I figured I'd stay in my hometown until I was 18, like everybody else. And I thought I would go to a school and study. And it just happened. And once it started, I didn't want to stop. I didn't want to lose that momentum. So I'm just still going.
That is so good. And I want to piggyback on that real quick and
Mhm.
talk about your number one booked it moment. Walk us through that day, the auditions and callbacks, if they happen to be a part of it. What was going on in your life, and what about that moment makes it your favorite booked it moment?
Great question. I think I'm going to have to talk about Wicked for this one because, like so many people that listen and have been on this show before, I was a massive, massive fan of it. And I obviously listened to the CD in the car every single day when it came out. I was so obsessed with the show that I turned the garage at the house I grew up in into a theater. And my parents couldn't park a car in there for years. And I would build sets and lighting and costumes and fog machines and karaoke tracks and whatever. And I would perform Wicked like every day after school by myself in my garage, as well as many other musicals. But Wicked was, I think, the one that started that. But we did a little Fiddler, we did a little Phantom, and we did a little Joseph and the Amazing Technicolor Dreamcoat for some reason.
Yes.
Um,
Great
and
music.
yeah, oh, totally. Yeah. So I would perform in that garage every single day after school. So for that reason, booking Wicked was very special to me. But also the way it came about felt very, I guess, just meant to be. So I auditioned for the show out in LA actually about once, maybe twice a year. I don't know. They come out and they do an LA session. And I've known Craig Burns at Telsey since I was 14. And Bach seems like a pretty obvious choice for me. So I had been in for so many years. That happens with so many people for this show specifically. You go in for years and years and it's just not the right time, not the right fit, whatever. So I've definitely been seen for this role before, but for some reason it just felt like all the pieces clicked this time. So I went in January of 2019 and I heard nothing. I got some really nice feedback and I heard nothing until May. And at the end of May, I was doing a show at the Hollywood Bowl and we were doing like a sits probe rehearsal. We're all out on stage and I absentmindedly was going through my phone and I had this email that said, checking Riley's availability for Bach on Broadway. Here's the dates. And I nearly threw my phone into the audience
What?
because I was not expecting that. I hadn't thought about it in months. The audition was in January. Here we are on like Memorial Day weekend. And it was nuts. And then I was also in the middle of callbacks for another project. And then, I mean, this always happens, by the way. A quick sidebar is that it's like you'll have nothing for a year sometimes, or like months and months. Then all of a sudden you get two things at once and you have to make a horrible decision. You just wish they
Yeah.
could put out sometimes. But so I was actually supposed to go to New York for this final callback for this other thing, which was exciting. And I just thought, this is weird. This is a lot of stuff swirling around at once. And I kept getting like tidbits of information from Wicked, but it still wasn't an official offer. So I was really like partly confused and excited, but I didn't want to get my hopes up because,
Right.
nothing is ever for sure until it has already happened in my mind. So I was in New York for this other thing and finished that final callback. And I hadn't been to New York in a while. I did go back commonly for work a week or two here and there for a workshop or whatever it was, but I hadn't spent it had been a while since I had been in New York. So it felt good to be back there. And I thought, if I am going to hear from Wicked, I hope I hear while I'm here because it just felt really special. It felt very full circle for me. It had been almost 10 years since I had been in a Broadway show. Everyday Rapture was 2010. And so it felt like this really amazing full circle thing. I was with my good friend from high school, leaving the final callback for the other project. And my phone rang. It was my manager. We were going to my favorite restaurant in the city that I was there for 24 hours. I was planning all my, the best of, and it just
Right.
magical New York moment of hearing that I got the job. I couldn't believe it just because of what that show meant to me personally. I think that was a very roundabout way to say that, but wow, thanks for sticking around. What that show meant to me personally and what it meant for me to be coming back to New York in this way for something was really special. And I think I cried a little bit. It was just this amazing moment of, I really couldn't believe it. It just felt so much bigger than me. And I was so excited to be coming back in my dream show.
Oh, that is so cool. And you're right. Wicked is kind of like in a league of its own. And I think Hamilton is just going to join it up there, you know what I mean? But it's been around, and Lion King's up there, Phantom's up there, right? Cats is up there.
Yeah.
But there's all these Hallmark shows that have just been around for so long and so iconic. But Wicked, man, that music is something else. Stephen Schwartz is brilliant at writing music that you just want to leave singing. That's what I love about that show.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, talk about a little bit once you got into the show, you started rehearsals, opening. Talk about that a little bit.
Sure. Yeah. I'd never joined anything in progress before. I'd always opened a show with everybody. It was a very new experience rehearsing by myself. Sometimes in a show like Wicked, I mean, they put people in every other day. I mean, we have so many new people coming in all the time. It's a very large company, but it was apparently very unusual that I was the only person joining on this date. So I did almost my entire rehearsal process alone with just
Oh,
me, dance captains, stage management, and occasionally and then at the end everyone would come in and see the put in. But for the majority of my 2 weeks of rehearsal it was just me. And so it just was the most bizarre. It just almost didn't feel real to be in a rehearsal space by myself just shouting good news, she's dead, alone, thinking. And I remember saying to myself, Riley, you have to just throw yourself into this or you will never be ready, because I know it feels so wrong to just be belting at the top of your lungs alone in a room, but you have no choice. You have no choice or you will not be ready on the day. But the team there, it's such a well-oiled machine at this point that I felt very comfortable. I felt very ready. And because I was such a fan of the show and I had seen it like an embarrassing number of times, I definitely probably could have done it with fewer rehearsals. And the dance captains were making fun of me for that because they would teach me something and I would, I guess, pick it up quickly, and they'd be like, "Are you sure you haven't done the show before?" I was like, "Nope, just a fan." But
a super
it was also
fan.
really cool to rehearse and be let in on all the secrets of how everything was done. Like the things that I didn't know as an audience member, I was like, "Oh, that's how you do that. That's cool."
Oh, that is very cool. And let's take a moment to talk about the present. What projects are you working on now? What are you looking forward to? And It's a weird time, right? We are amidst this global pandemic. How do you see the entertainment industry moving forward in the next couple of years?
I wish I knew. I wish I knew. I guess we know where I was when this all happened. We were all in rehearsal on the Gershwin stage, and the Playbill article came out that Broadway was going to be dark for a month at the time. We all looked at each other, oh, I guess there's no show tonight, which again is totally unheard of, especially
Yeah.
for a beast of a show like Wicked, which has been around forever. You never think about the show not happening in that space. So yeah, we don't know. We don't know what's going to happen. We don't know when we'll be back. The show will be back, but we don't know what it's going to look like. And let's see, what am I looking forward to? I'm really looking forward to what I hope is this like creative renaissance after this or from this. It's of this time. It's not after because I don't know. I don't know that it's going to feel solidly like we're in it now and then we're not in it. I think it's going to be a gradual shift and change. And I think it's forced everybody to just get back to what makes us all happy, which is for artists making art and making stuff. And so I know people are out there being creative. I myself am working on my own music projects and been able to work a little bit remotely for like demo recordings for composers and stuff like that. It feels more like a pivot than a stop. We're all just trying to find new ways to keep that creative fire lit. And I started this I sometimes put out covers on my Instagram, and I started this thing called Musical Mondays, which once the pandemic got a little more intense, I took a break. I'm going to come back with some more music soon, and it was every Monday, but now it might be an occasional Monday. We'll see. But
Yeah.
it's something that has kept me going and kept me being creative and learning new skills about music production and audio editing and I've been able to work remotely with some friends and work on some really exciting duets virtually with people, which has just been so fun to figure out. And so for me, it's like doing the things that make me happy, singing, sharing music, all of that. So I'm hoping that I know there will be a big swell of content from this time, and I'm excited to see all of that.
Yeah, me too. I love your insight. And I agree with you. I had a guest on the other day. His name is Benjamin Simpson, and he is a two-time Tony Award winning producer. And he also believes there's going to be loads of content because he said him as a producer before COVID, his day was filled chock full of just running the day to day.
Mm,
And now during COVID time, he has the time to read the scripts from unknown playwrights, listen to the music of unknown composers. And it's not just the content being created, it's that the people that have the abilities to turn these works into huge products, they're the ones that have the time to now look at that content, live with that content, and go, you know what? I like this idea. Let's make this.
yeah. Yeah, I can't wait. And I think that also speaks to other incredible movement going on in our country and our world right now that I'm hopeful that we're going to come back with a more inclusive, diverse, and just art that really reflects the world we live in and who's in it. Because these voices have been begging to be heard, and maybe since everybody's been able to take a step back from their day to day, they're finally listening. So I'm hopeful. Again, I'm hopeful. I think I am pretty optimistic about the future, but I think there's also that energy of we're just going to hang tight until it's safe. But I know that artists are resilient, and I think some of the best art has come out of moments like this. And it's not the first trauma our world has been through, and I know that there's a brighter future, and I'm sure it's full of art.
Yeah, agreed. And it is time to move on to one of my favorite sections in the interview. I call it the Grease Lightning Round. I am going to ask you a handful of questions. I want you to answer them as quickly and concisely as possible, one after another. Are you ready?
Oh boy. Okay, let's go.
All right, first question. What was the one thing holding you back from committing to a career as an entertainer?
I don't know that you could. I don't think you could stop me. I think I don't have anything else to do.
Second question. What is the best piece of advice you have ever received?
I think it sounds cliche, but I really think it's true. You just have to find out what you do and what sets you apart, and that's what you do. I think you have to find what you do, what makes you special, and stand out, and then try to hone that.
Yes, great advice. And the third question, what is something that is working for you right now? Or if you'd like to go pre COVID, what was working for you before our industry went on pause?
Yeah, I think I'll do the general pre-COVID one just because I spoke a little bit about what this time in history feels like right now and what's working for me now. But I think pre-COVID and on any job as a general thing, you just have to have kind of a, let's see, like a screw everything mentality, and you just got to focus on what you're doing and listen to your unique voice as an artist. And obviously, you have to be collaborative and work with people. It's not that. It's a different thing. It's about, you have to stop worrying about everybody else and what everybody else is doing. And I really think you can never compare your journey to anyone else. I just think there's room for everybody. So I think that works for me, is that having that trust, or that, you know what, just leave that behind attitude and just focus on, like, horse blinders. You got to go, you got to do what you're
Yeah.
doing.
Oh, such great advice. So valuable to everyone listening. And the fourth question, what is your best resource? Whether that is a book, a movie, a YouTube video, maybe a podcast or piece of technology that you found is helping your career right now.
Oof, like I said, I do love listening to whether it's podcasts or even press junkets on films or panels or whatever. I love listening to people talk about what they do. I love hearing about the creative process. I think another great resource is, I just am so inspired watching performers do it, like watching performers perform, watching whether that's really great films or really great TV. I always like to be watching what's happening right now, to see where the industry is, what's going on, what's popular right now, what's trendy, and what's hot right now. And I think it's, whether that's live theater or something on a screen, I'm just so inspired by watching fellow performers do what they do. I just love watching people just on fire with whatever their thing is. I want to watch people just do their thing. So that's honestly, and then, because then that motivates me to do my thing. It motivates all of us. I think I'm inspired by seeing people just slay.
So good. And us as a community, not only is it great and insightful and wonderful and you can learn from it, but supporting each other, supporting the arts, being part of this community that we love so much.
Totally. And I think like the absorption of all of that information, or you might, again, like you said, I don't know if I said this, that you just said, it's great. Like, you learn from that too. You really do learn from watching, and you get inspired by people.
Yeah. And the fifth question, if you had to start your career from scratch, but you still had all the knowledge and experience you've collected from your career in this industry, what would you do or not do? Would you do anything differently, or would you keep it the same?
I don't honestly know if I would do anything differently. I think, because I do think I'm quite happy with where I am. I think things have happened for me when they were supposed to happen. I don't know that I would have been ready for certain life experiences, career or otherwise, if they had happened earlier. But I do, maybe I wouldn't have worried so much. Like, maybe my anxiety levels would have been a little lower, because I just would have really had faith that everything would work out. I don't know that I would do anything differently, because I think everything I've learned, professional or personal, has gratefully put me in a very comfortable place these days, and I feel ready for whatever's next.
Brilliant. And the last question, what is the golden nugget knowledge drop you've learned from your successful career in this industry you'd like to leave with our listeners?
I think it's similar to the best advice I had, which was, you just have to find out what you do. You cannot worry about being the next blank, or being, oh, you remind me of blank. That's awesome and that's great. And sometimes that's a really big compliment, but you've got to find out why you're in this, what you do well, and why, what about this makes you happy. You have to do you, because you are unique and you are special and singular. So you've got to find out what sets you apart, and then try to build off of that, because we need your unique voice. Your story isn't the same as anybody else's. Obviously, we can all learn and relate to people's stories, but there's something so unique about each individual artist's voice. And so find out what makes you you, and just throw yourself into that.
Yes, find out what makes you you. So good. And to wrap up this interview, Riley, it is time to give yourself a plug. Where can we find you? How do our listeners connect with you? Is there anything you want to promote?
Oh my goodness. Well, I try to keep my Instagram very exciting and full of adventures, creative and otherwise. So give me a follow. My handle is at I'm Riley Costello. And like I said, I commonly will post some awesome music on Mondays, and that's become a passion project for me. And I always have really cool people that I'm working on songs with. Some of them are solo, but I try to keep it really fun and put out some good music occasionally.
Beautiful. And for everyone listening out there, I have put Riley's Instagram handle in the description of this episode so you can easily connect with him. And also be sure to share this podcast with fellow entertainers, coaches, teachers, or anybody that you know who's aspiring to create a career in this industry. You Booked It has become the largest resource of expertise on this very specific subject in the world. It is integral to helping them succeed in this business. Riley, thank you so much for taking the time to be with me today. It's been a pleasure getting to know you and have a chat.
Thank you. Likewise. This was fun.
Thank you so much for joining us today. Don't miss an episode. I have a new guest 7 days a week. Every guest drops more value and insight than any other resource out there. So make sure you hit that subscribe button. If you enjoyed this episode, we'd love to hear from you. Leave us a rating and review. Also, be sure to head over to youbookeditpodcast.com and join our free email community where we dig deep into a continually growing resource of truly actionable things you can be doing right now to help you advance your entertainment career. All the best to you. We'll see you tomorrow.